So welcome all the participants. Now you see here, today we will be discussing, the first thing is mind and matter. Mind, the sole cause of world experience. And third is latent impressions, known as vasana. And another important point is life as a dream. And then channelizing the mind force. Actually, tomorrow's class will also deal with this, but channelizing the mind force, because this mind itself is a very great natural strength. It can be channelized also. Various ways are recommended and suggested in the yoga texts, even in Yoga Vasishtha. And is there anything beyond mind? So that idea is also discussed. And mind destruction, that means how to transcend the psychological state. So that is also a very important point discussed in the Yoga Vasishtha. And today, now we will see gradually. The first thing, world experience, drishti srishti. So this idea of Yoga Vasishtha should be properly understood, and it comes at many places in the Yoga Vasishtha, that after all it is drishti srishti. In the Vedanta, there are some philosophers who advocate the theory of srishti drishti. So the opposite of this. In the srishti drishti, if you change the words, it becomes that first there is creation, then mind is also a part of that creation. So first there is srishti, everything is created, then you are also born in that, and then you make a communication with the universe. You look, you perceive, you understand, you respond. So this kind of drishti will be later. So what is first? That means which one of these two? Srishti or drishti? So that has been a very highly debated point in Indian philosophy, but here we find Yoga Vasishtha supporting the drishti srishtivada throughout. So it firmly believes that it is drishti first. That means there should be something conscious, intelligent, and that should just think of that, and from its single thought only, the srishti should take place. That means creation in the form of manifestation is a result of drishti. So mind is everything. And the process is like this. Impressions first, and these impressions, when they get accumulated and when they get a solid form, it is known as mind. Actually, solid and liquid is not possible in the case of mind, but this mind is nothing but a kind of amalgamation of all the impressions. And just because the impressions are so woven together, so they lead to the world experience. So this point is really very interesting, because how these impressions lead to the world experience. And even in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he also very clearly says that Chittam is not, it doesn't have any separate entity apart from the Vasana. So if you remove the Vasana, you don't find anything called mind even after that. So that's why Manaha Nirvasanam Mokshaha. So in the Yoga Vasishtha, somewhere he says very clearly that Manaha Nirvasanam. That means when mind is totally cleared of its impressions, that itself is moksha. And now this vasana or impression, so how do we define that? Yoga Vasishtha says, Purvapara Vichara Parityaga Purvakam Padartha Grahana. That is in Sanskrit. It's nothing but without considering the pros and cons, without considering the cause and effect relation, mind just getting onto some object is its vasana. That means it actually jumps onto the object. and it immediately responds. So that particular aspect of mind is known as vasana, and that vasana is the sole cause of all world experience. So this is one idea of drishti srishti vada. According to one class of scholars, drishti srishti means drishti janya srishti. That means first there is mind and it causes the srishti. But according to other school of philosophers, it is drishti samasamaya srishti. So both drishti and srishti, that means the mind and creation both are simultaneous. For example, when we sit in deep meditation, it's actually, I don't know how many of you have experienced the sweet moments in meditation, but whatever little experience I have got from Mahesh Yogi in the Netherlands, I can tell you, I want to share these beautiful moments with you, that actually we sit in meditation, mind will be just hovering around. Then after some time, if our mind is very strong, then gradually it cools down, and we experience a kind of quietude, total silence within, but we will be aware. So that awareness will be there. But after some time, if we continue with that, all of a sudden that disappears. And we are no more aware of anything. We are no more aware that we are actually practicing meditation or seeing something or repeating the mantra. We are not aware of anything. Just blankness. And that particular blankness is noted by Patanjali as asamprajnata samadhi. And in Buddhism also, Lalita Vistara and other Tripitaka, we find the terms. And in Yoga Vasishtha, this particular state is known as samadhi. So, total blankness. But after some time, all of a sudden we get from that. So actually these 2 points should be properly understood. So there was some point where the mind was completely blank. After that, all of a sudden you have come out and you are aware of your surroundings, everything as usual. So between these 2 points, what was there? So it's actually vasana. So the Yoga Shastra says that vasana or the samskara that actually gets us out of the state of meditation, or it can take us into the state of meditation. One is known as samadhi samskara, other is known as jagrat samskara. So either is possible. So this very important point is given in the Yoga Vasishtha, that ultimately the impressions, they make us extrovert, they can make us introvert also. And whatever world experience is given by these impressions, that world experience is an illusion. That's what Yoga Vasishtha says. But the question mark is given here just to discuss with you, is it an illusion? So illusion is the statement. But there is a question, is it an illusion? Because whatever we experience every day, whatever we feel, whatever we interact, all this is just discarded as illusion. Is it possible? Now we have in the Western philosophy also idealism. Idealism is there. And in our India, the Indian philosophy, we have Adi Shankaracharya, who advocated the theory of Jagat Mithya. And this particular illusion concept should be properly understood, lest we misunderstand Adi Shankara's philosophy and Yoga Vasishtha philosophy and unnecessarily put it to or subject that to criticism. Now, basically, what is illusion? We have, of course, I just remind you, there is illusion, there is hallucination, there is delusion, everything. Everything is in mind. Now, what is illusion? Actually, something is there. We are not aware of that, and something else is projected on that. This is actually the nature of illusion. And the famous example taken from the Vedanta is the rope and snake illusion, or mistaking a particular shining object as gold or silver. This is also illusion. So what happens there? It's actually something is there, physically real, but because of our previous impressions, we have mistaken that to be that for another thing. So something is mistaken for some other thing. This is basically illusion. So rope is there because the rope is tortuous, because it is it's actually curly. So we are reminded of the snake because it also has the same shape. So naturally we mistake the rope for a snake and all of a sudden jump and take a stick, try to beat or run away, and our heartbeat also increases. So all this happens. But once we know, when somebody throws some light on that and when we see really that it is a rope, then it disappears. Everything, all effect of illusion, all effect of misunderstanding, misperception, so that goes off. Now, this illusion is, you can easily understand that it is a result of our ignorance. Ignorance is nothing but absence of understanding, absence of knowledge. What knowledge? Say, actually there is rope, but since we do not know that rope, just the shape has caused the illusion. So one thing is there, that something is there, it is not known. But this is not problematic. According to Indian philosophy also, this state is not problematic if we don't know the thing. The problem comes only when we see other thing in its place. That is the problem. For example, if we don't know the rope, don't see the rope, no problem. But mistaking the rope for a snake is the problem, because we have reacted to that. All responses have taken place because of that. So this particular, the second one, is known as avidya. Avidya is spiritual blindness in the form of projecting something in the place of some reality. And the entire world experience, I reiterate, that it is illusion. In this sense, for example, there is no chance of knowing that water is H2O. Only in books. Water is there and we drink, we quench our thirst, and we do many things with that. Water is water. But science tells us H2O, there is covalent bond, and the particle physics enters there. So the reality there is hydrogen oxygen molecule, but appearance is water, and whatever we do with the water, not the molecules. But molecules are inseparable part of the element called water. And again, if we look into the hydrogen and oxygen, we find there that the configuration of that particular one is also different. So 1-1. So then there is one electron, proton. So again, if we look into that, so we again find quarks. So what is real? If something is real, then whatever is projected or appearing or manifested should be an illusion. Because in the place of some real thing, some other thing is projected, and we are carried away, and we are allured by the appearance. And what is the problem? Okay, we accept that there is illusion and we are attracted by the illusion, then what wrong is there? The world is so beautiful, attractive. So we live a normal life. What is the problem? But it's actually not a problem to a common man. It is problem to a spiritually inclined person. Because the same world that did not disturb any other person, it disturbed only Ramachandra, it disturbed only Gautama Buddha. It actually did not disturb even Dasharatha. See, so many people were there, but they were not disturbed. So this particular spiritual inclination So that actually projects this. So with this spiritual inclination only, you understand that the world appearance is an illusion, and world appearance is so attractive that our attention and our the ability to stay within, so that is lost. That is the problem. That's why in the Ishavasya Upanishad, towards the end of the Upanishad, we find a very beautiful mantra where it is said, Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham. So it says, Lord, oh God, my problem is that a very beautiful golden cup has covered the entire world, the reality, and please remove that, the golden, attractive, the cup. If you remove that, I can have a direct vision of the reality. So that is the prayer there. So we understand that the world is attractive, beautiful, everything. But if you have a deep inclination towards reality, understanding, realizing, and bringing out all potentiality, then I tell you, definitely the world experience becomes an obstacle there. So we have to get rid of that. And that will come tomorrow class, because there I have given few slides, the method of getting rid of all this. That means the impressions, the mind, and getting beyond the catch of mind. All these things will be discussed tomorrow. So the world experience is an illusion. And here we have discussed just now that ignorance has two powers. One is concealing the fact, and other is projecting something else. These two powers are there. Ignorance is one, but it has two powers. So sometimes we don't know the reality, no problem. But mistaking that for another thing is the cause of all problems, that we should understand. And this illusion, because it belongs to the second type, where there is one supreme consciousness, the God consciousness, but we lead a common life, day-to-day life, and we are distracted by the worldly affairs, worldly contacts, communication, relations, all that. And because of that, because the mind is so engrossed in the worldly things, it cannot go on to the supreme consciousness. And Yoga Vasishtha discusses the Purushartha. Purusha means the soul or the consciousness inside. Atma, that is Purusha. Artha means that which is sought after by the soul, that which should be sought after by the soul. Two things are there, which it always seeks for. That is also Purushartha. Actually, that which it should seek always, that is also Purushartha. Now, if we take all these, we have a wonderful classification of these, like Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. These four are the Purushartha. Because Artha and Kama, that means Artha is getting money, doing something, and doing all the worldly things. This is Artha. And Kama, so whatever money we earn, with that, if we fulfill our desires, it is Kama. Artha and Kama is actually, they are the driving forces of the entire world. They are the driving forces. But in Indian philosophy, you have two security guards, Dharma and Moksha. So this Dharma and Moksha, this is actually the controlling factors of Artha and Kama. And these are Purushartha. Even Kautilya says in the Artha Shastra, these are Purushartha only. You earn money and you fulfill your desires, you set up a family and you live very comfortable life. But it says, simultaneously, you give a thought to the Dharma and Moksha. Dharma means throughout your life, as long as you are alive, whatever duty is to be performed, it is the Dharma. And there is a beautiful story about that. In Maharashtra, in Indore, there was a queen, you must be knowing her name, Ahalyabai Holkar. So there was a queen, and once she invited a scholar to teach her Bhagavad Gita. So the scholar came, and after all the invocation, he started reading the Bhagavad Gita for her. The first shloka he just recited, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavaha. Then she said, stop there. He was taken aback. The scholar was very much afraid. He thought he must have committed some problem, some mistake. So the queen got angry and he requested her, please tell me, madam, what happened, your majesty. Then she said, Arey, why to study all the 700 shlokas when the essence is given in the first shloka itself, the first sentence? What is the sentence? Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. She said, the entire gamut of Bhagavad Gita philosophy reflects in the first couplet only, not even the shloka. What is that? Dharma kshetre kurukshetre. So if you rearrange the words, kshetre kshetre dharmam kuru. So this will be the order, prose order. And what does it mean? She said, see, I understand the Bhagavad Gita in these 4 words, that in whatever field you are, perform your duty with all honesty, with all sincerity. That's all. So thus we understand. So very beautiful stories are also there. We may get carried away. But now I come back that this spiritual blindness is known as avidya, illusion, ignorance, having 2 forces, concealing something and projecting some other thing. And the problem is, throughout our life, if we are carried away by the concealing force of the avidya, that means not being able to know the reality. Okay, we are in ignorance, we are unable to understand and know the reality. What is the problem? The problem is the same spiritual blindness or ignorance is actually active with another force, that is projecting. That projection is very, very dangerous. And mind is projecting the entire world experience. This is the idea I wanted to discuss with you. So the world experience is because of the projecting power of the mind, projecting something. And you may ask, what projects? How can it project? And my answer is, the impressions it has got from various births, many births. So these impressions are very strong that these actually they actually project something, and we take it for granted that this birth also, we are in this body, we are living, and we have already spent so many years, but still we are comfortable and we take this world experience for granted. And we think that everything is cool and calm. Many people are dying because of corona, but no problem here. I'm safe, happy, okay. So this is actually the wheeling power of the avidya, ajnana. So this is projecting something, that everything is safe and fine. And because of this tendency, we never try for a realization of supreme reality or consciousness. We live a very normal, common life. Many. That's why in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Yatatamaphi siddhanam kaschit mam vetti tattvataha. So, out of 130 crore of people, how many are attending this Yoga Vasishtha class now? Okay, we suppose 100. Out of 130 crore, 100 people. And out of 100 also, how many people will sit really for meditation and want to get that state of meditation? Very few. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, once a businessman went to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and he was pestering him with several questions, and he said, Thakurji, you show me God. Then he said, tomorrow, again and again, and he was pestering like anything. And when Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was leaving and he was in the boat, that businessman again came to him and said, I have decided to donate so much to your monastery or matha. Please show me God. Then Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, sit in the boat. Then after some distance, all of a sudden he pushed the businessman's head into the water and pushed like that. And he was actually gasping for breath. He was about to die. Then he loosened his grip. Then the businessman said, Thakurji, you were killing me. Then coolly he asked, what was you thinking? What were you thinking? What was in your mind? Then the businessman said, no, nothing. I was just thinking of my life. Then Thakurji said, like that, if you think of God, so God will appear before you. But you make it a part-time job. So that's why he doesn't appear. The appearing means actually realization, knowing. So these so many stories, they tell us that the reality is with us, but we don't give proper time for that. And this illusion can be removed. For that, we should understand matter and mind, their nature, their relation, their differences. For this, matter representative is brain in our body. So mind has no form, it is abstract, but brain is there. And that brain, as we know, it's actually whatever, cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, and all the central nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic, and all the neurons supply there. And then it going down, and peripheral nervous system, and the vertebrae, and the spinal nerve. So it's actually beautiful creation. And there, brain is made up of atoms. And again, you have electrons and quarks. Actually, electrons do not have quarks. Only the proton and neutrons have quarks. So ultimately, brain is nothing but matter. And on the other side, we have mind. It's actually a set of cognitive functions. Mind is abstract, but it is controlled by the brain. So mind is not matter. It is an idea. So actually, Will Durant gives a very beautiful example that some time back there were idealists and realists also. So there was a discussion, and actually very heated argument was continuing between those two. Some were telling that matter is real, and others were telling that mind is real. So there was hot argument, and after all, a type of agreement was to be made, compromise. So when they came together, so one person said, okay, if you say matter is real, we don't mind. If you say mind is real, it doesn't matter. So this way is actually a kind of agreement between these two, compromise. So that I remember that mind and matter. So mind is not matter, matter is only brain. And in brain we have all the nerve supply, neuron supply, that means mild electric charge, and the information is passed on through these only, because we have dendrites, axons. So these actually pass on the information to the next, and the entire the body is controlled by this central nervous system. And matter or mind, in the yoga philosophy, the mind or manas or chitta is also matter, not in the modern neurobiological science, but in Yoga Vasishtha, mind is also matter, because they have not given much importance to the brain, the physical one. Whatever is taking place in the brain is more important. So that's why in no Ayurveda text or the philosophy text you find the dissection of brain and the parts of brain. So this was not given importance. On the contrary, importance has been given to the emotions, intelligence, memory, illusion, perception, proper knowledge. So awakening, enlightenment. So these ideas were given importance because the life will be moving on, and precious time will be totally elapsed. So this particular, because Purushartha is very important for them, and that moksha is also the major Purushartha, they say, because whatever we earn money, we spend here, and whatever we accumulate, the wealth in the form of houses, in the form of vehicles, everything, even gold, everything, we have to live here only. So that's why dharma, artha, kama, only that they are actually limited only to this world, this life. And moksha, our Indian philosophy firmly believes that moksha is that personal to that particular soul. So therefore, Parama Purushartha, the ultimate Purushartha should be only moksha. So that is a very beautiful idea there. And now mind and chitta is actually Western philosophers and scientists had given a thought to that, but there are different views regarding mind. So some people understood chitta is that faculty by which the mind first recalls to memory. So according to this, mind is something which functions with the help of chitta. But in our Indian philosophy, chitta is generally translated as mind. And some people have mistaken this chitta for soul also. They said soul means nothing but chitta. And in our philosophy, even in Yoga Vasishtha, this chitta is actually an ingredient of the linga sharira, or the subtle body, that which leaves this body, the gross body, and takes on the next birth. So chitta is soul, some people said. Chitta is consciousness. The famous psychologist Carl Jung, he said in one of his books, chitta is consciousness. But in our Yoga Vasishtha, they make a clear distinction between these two, that chitta is different, consciousness is different. Chitta is matter, so it cannot be conscious on its own. Consciousness is the energy, and that actually supplies energy to the chitta also. So therefore, the clear distinction between these two, chitta and chaitanya, they are two. Chaitanyam is consciousness, chitta is mind. And according to our tradition also, chitta is inert and it cannot function on its own. It needs the energy supply, and consciousness only provides that energy. So that is yoga of Patanjali and Yoga Vasishtha also. And then we have the perception problem. The seer and the seen, the perceiver and the perceived. So on one side we have self-awareness. It's actually part of the movie, and it creates within the frame seen and the seer, thought and thinker. So this is very important in the context of Yoga Vasishtha, that actually self-aware consciousness, it has projected something in which it itself becomes the player and the game. That means we, the part of the show, we are trying to understand the game, we are playing the game, and we are being played also. Because some maximum 100 years life is given, and within this short period, we are supposed to realize and lead a very contentful life. So this, the seen and the seer, thought and thinker, so that game is going on, and we are part of that and we are playing that. The mind and its products are the seen. So what is perceived? Nothing but the mind and its products. What are the products of mind? Is actually when the entire creation is supposed to have taken place from the mind, that is chitta janya, chitta karya. So it's actually mind itself is the seen, and consciousness or the chaitanya, the energy, the cosmic energy, it is the seer. Yoga Vasishtha always tries to reiterate this particular fact, that seer is the consciousness. But only thing is, super consciousness and conditioned consciousness, the difference between these two is, here you have condition. The condition or adjuncts are the body, physical body, mind, ego, intellect. So these are all the conditions. And when the consciousness enters into this body and gets enveloped by this particular one, so then there comes the seer, that state. So this is actually a condition of the consciousness. Seer is not its true nature. This is very important. That means now we are watching In dream state also we will be watching several things, we will be experiencing. In deep sleep, however, we don't get any experiences. Now, after death, do we get experiences? That means, will there be something to experience? Yoga Vasishtha says very emphatically, yes. Even after death, there is some subtle body which experiences everything. And it will be as strong as the experience in the wakeful state. How to believe this? Yoga Vasishtha says, okay, now we are in the body, we are in wakeful state, and we are aware, alert, and after some time we get to sleep, and still we are aware that we are sleeping on a bed, that particular day, that particular time, everything, and slowly we get into sleep, then dream state. And in dream state, what is actually causing all the experiences, different people, different worlds, different relations, different experiences? What is causing? Mind. Nothing but that. Only mind. Mind is causing. And that mind, it causes the world in the sleep state. It causes the world in the wakeful state also. So this is very strong force of nature, mind. And Yoga Vasishtha says, after death, that particular aspect of mind will be very active, that the body, the physical body is left. There is no contact with the physical body, but that mind continues, and that can see its dead body, that it can observe all the things happening. So it believes. So this is Yoga Vasishtha. And it says, it is because of the impressions it carries. And during lifetime only, our life, that means while being alive only, if we can get rid of these impressions, then after death, since there are no impressions to pull back the consciousness, it actually gets to the state of liberation. So that idea is given. And the consciousness in its pure form is not any seer. So it is actually the contrary of the previous statement. The consciousness sees through mind. So if this faculty is withdrawn, then there is no soul to see, soul to experience, because everything is gone. And now we come to the dual. On one side you have consciousness, on the other side you have mind. Few people have mistaken, as I told you, that mind itself is the consciousness. As for example, Descartes said, mind is consciousness and self-aware of itself. But actually, Patanjali and Vasishtha Maharshi in their texts very strongly say that mind cannot be conscious, because it is not the ultimate reality. The consciousness is beyond the mind, and consciousness is nothing more than the ability of our brain to acquire information. This is also Western idea. Functioning brain is identical to a conscious mind. So these Western ideas have influenced, for example, in France, in America also, these ideas have very much influenced the ideology in the populace. But we find here in India, we always believed that consciousness is different from mind, thoughts, emotions, intelligence. It is beyond. And generally people get afraid that, oh, if I strive for liberation, then my intelligence will be lost, my identity will be lost, my emotions will be lost. So if everything is lost, then I am losing myself. That is self-destruction. So people don't want that. Some people have discussed with me also. So here I would like to tell you the positive aspect of moksha or liberation is that even Shankaracharya admitted, the Upanishads also have made clear that moksha or liberation is not negative. It is actually getting a very expanded existence, identity. So not confined identity, but actually losing our limited identity only to wake up in a very expanded identity called moksha. So this yesterday I discussed. Then The same slide, but with some changes you can observe. Ultimate reality is Brahman. But how do the Upanishads describe the Brahman? The first word I'll tell you, the Upanishads describe the Brahman as undescribable. How do they explain Brahman? Inexplicable. That's all. Then we are taken aback. I need some explanation. I need some description of Brahman, and you say this is the description, and you say you don't give any description at all. That is our complaint. Then it's actually entire Yoga Vasishtha. In all the 6 chapters you find this, how that particular ultimate reality is and should be expressed in negative terms. This is very important. Why the negative way? Why the Vedic seers and modern quantum physicists, the particle physicists, have preferred negative terms for ultimate reality? Undivided. Because divided, whatever is divided is limited. Brahman is unlimited. Therefore, it should be undivided. So you find here negative term, undivided. And actually in the Big Bang theory also, the singularity, the first, it's actually the time also started from that say, so that is the Brahman, and you don't have any division there. Because maybe 10 to the power of minus 42, 43 seconds, you have that division. That means it's not even exact division, because the nucleons were created later. Again, you have the nucleus synthesis also later only. Then maybe after first second, you have the first particles. Then matter, antimatter, that was created like electron and positron. Then you have the atoms. So if we compare with that, it is very, very obvious that if at all there was a reality in the beginning of the creation, according to science, according to our philosophy, Yoga Vasishtha, that should be undivided. 100% undivided. And the modern science, especially the particle physics also, this endorses this theory. Second is infinite. Yes, infinity itself is Brahman. Because before creation there was nothing. So how can you say that some finite was there, then it became infinite? No, not possible. And all change appeared after the creation. So therefore it was changeless, the cause of all creation. And because it actually created all bodies, and all bodies maybe few million years after the Big Bang, these were created, all the bodies with all the senses. So how can you say that the senses can reach the ultimate reality? So finally the ultimate reality is Brahman, and it should be and can be expressed in negative terms. And you can take support of the modern physics also. And I was discussing this only for a passing reference. We just understand this. See, 10 to the power of minus 43 seconds, the Max Planck era started. And so actually, this, you don't have particles, no nucleons, nothing, because everything was later. So that's why this Planck era, this supposes the primordial state of all the matter. Okay. Then the GUT era, that means general unified existence, unified, excepting only the gravitation. All the 3 other forces were unified. So in one singularity, like the electromagnetic, because when electrons were not there, how can you say electromagnetic field? So it was not there. And strong and weak nuclear forces were also not there. So we have this era, 10 to the power of minus 35 seconds. Then it's actually not even nanosecond. We are going above 10 to the power of minus 10 seconds. So there was the electroweak era. Electroweak. On one side you have electromagnetic, and on the other side the weak nuclear force. So slowly the two in singular. See again one undivided. So till this part you find undivided only. Then we have come to the nucleosynthesis era, and here you have the proton and neutron forming a nucleus. It's actually there is nothing called nucleus, it's only proton and neutron. So that particular stage appeared when? After 0.001. Then the proton neutron appeared, then you have a nucleus 3 minutes, and afterwards the atoms. Okay, you have gross atoms and atoms, then the bond, the molecules, everything. So finally you have the physical material world. That is era of galaxies, and all the galaxies were formed. Like era of galaxies, maybe 1 billion years, but down to the core cause of that, if you want to explore. So you come to the Planck era, where it was in undivided form, one singular, ekameva advitiyam brahma. So the Upanishad also very strongly says it is Brahma ekameva advitiyam. So that we should understand and appreciate also. So these are the explanations, and in this, maybe as I told you, several billion years after that, that means after Big Bang, we have come to the creation. Several galaxies were formed, and the solar systems, and our solar system is also one of the present galaxy. And here in a corner of the galaxy, some planets are moving around a star called Sun, Surya, and they are revolving around, and great life is experienced here, and it is actually insignificant in the entire expansion of the universe. Nothing, even the galaxy, not even universe, in the galaxy also, it's actually huge distance, 15 crore kilometer between Earth and Sun. So that huge one. And here the tiny creatures, tiny like microbes, human beings are also created like other human beings, tiny creatures, and they also have tiny brains. And the brain, it is actually the creation of nature. It has all these, and Yoga Vasishtha says it is the physical one, but still there is mind in the form of impressions, vasana, and that is very important. So that's why what we have been doing in the life, throughout life, that is very important, because it decides the next birth. This is what Yoga Vasishtha says, because in the brain it is only physical location, but it is mind, memory, thinking, reasoning, understanding, judgment, behavior. So everything, as you can observe here, the front lobe and back lobe, right and left, and the places of language, memory, intelligence, etc. So if that particular part is damaged, so naturally our memory loss or language disorders also, that means utterance, speech disorders also take place. And we have intelligence, judgment and behavior in autism and other disorders, we find this. So this is actually the physical representative of matter, but it is actually chitta, not even brain. That's what our Yoga Vasishtha says. And the world experience, that which we get with the help of our brain, it's actually qualia. This is again a very interesting term, that we are actually responding to the external stimuli. We are experiencing and responding. This is actually life. And we see colors and shapes. As Stephen Hawking said in one of his interviews, he said, I look at the universe in geometrical proportions. And we common people, we look at the universe in shapes and colors. And here, the modern science also tells us that actually all these color, shapes, everything is in mind, not outside. This we should understand. The qualia, they are actually unified properties of the outside world, but products of our consciousness. How? See, the problem is we observe something like a red color. We know that red, but how to communicate with others, how to share this information with others, how to tell the other person that it is red, what is red. We can tell him that it is red, and if he is already if he already knows the color red, then he can match with this and understand what is red. But suppose a new person is there and I want to introduce the color red with the help of words. So how do I describe? There are such things in the universe which are matter of experience but can never be subject of language. Language fails at many places, and especially while describing the ultimate reality, the experiences in meditation, so the language fails. Products of our consciousness, matter is therefore derivative of consciousness. And everything we talk about or regard as existing, that is nothing but consciousness, because it is actually the process of communication, that there appears something existing outside. But Yoga Vasishtha says it is nothing but your mind's creation, because mind is such a natural force that it creates everything. And in this process, the Brahman, the source of all creation, all experience, so the Brahman, it's actually cosmic reality. Then the first cosmic mind is known as thought mind. So the first thought, that means a kind of impulse in the Brahman. Unfortunately in India, whenever I utter a word Brahman, people imagine somebody sitting on a lotus, somebody standing with 4 hands or 5 heads, etc., etc. That is the problem. But Brahman here is the energy, and energy has no shape, no size, no form, nothing. And that Brahman should be intelligent so that it can create a very designed universe. So here, that primordial cause of the universe, so that had intelligence and that has intelligence even present. So that actually a thought occurred, and from that thought only the world appearance has taken place, and in the world appearance we now perceive the things. So it is from the Brahman, the seed. So it is known as Vishwa Bijam. In Yoga Vasishtha you come across the word Vishwa Bijam, Brahma Vishwa Bijam, and the Brahma becoming Vishwa Bijam is through mind, that is Chitta. So Sankalpa Prabhava Lokaha, the Yoga Vasishtha says all the words are created by your mind. And Loka in Sanskrit, the word Loka, though it is translated as world, doesn't mean world. It is actually, Loka means experience. So when somebody says Manushya Loka, that means the experience and belief that we are human beings. So now I am a human body and I am a human being. So this belief is Manushya Loka. Then Deva Loka, what is that? Nothing but when we open up our eyes in a different world and find that we are born born as God, then Deva Loka. So these are all experiences, and experience can be put across with the word Loka. That's what Adi Shankaracharya explained in the Upanishad Bhashya also. Loka means Anubhavaha, experience. So thus, from consciousness only you have all projection of this world and perception. Perception here, cognition. So all cognition is part of the world, and the part of the entire world is a creation of the mind, and the mind is the force of the first cause, the ultimate reality called Brahman. And in this particular process, whatever we are experiencing as life, in the beginning, some people have maybe 20 years life, some people have 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, or even 100, more than 100, but there is a limit. And this particular life is known as Jivanam, That means nothing but the vital breath taking a body and occupying that for some time is known as Jivanam. So prana sharira sanyogaha. That's what our seer said. And in this particular life experience, we have dreams every day. Few people don't remember, and few people even argue that they don't get dreams at all. Okay, that's their personal, but majority I'm talking about. So many people get dreams, and Carl Jung has analyzed on the lines of Sigmund Freud, who has actually initiated this dream analysis and psychosynthesis, all that. So dreams is actually a kind of experience. What kind of experience? When actually we forget about our physical existence and actually live in a different world created by the mind, it is known as dream. There, all the objects, places, persons, relations, all attachments, emotions, they all pertain to the dream state, and they may not really correspond with the wakeful state experiences also. Many a times it is different. The wakeful state experience different from the dream experience. But dream is very strong. And in one Tibetan tradition, even now, they believe that dreams can be controlled and guided so that you can plan your dream and you can get the dream. So that is there in the Tibetan tantric system. Now, dreams is actually we are in deep sleep and we are actually dreaming. This is swapna. When we come out of that and the dream memory continues, it is swapna jagrat, because dream experience is still continuing and for some time. Especially in small children, we find that all of a sudden they wake up, they open their eyes, they look at something, but they refer to that. Oh, this is there, this is that. They are still in the dream. This is known as swapna jagrat. And mahaswapna is also there. This life is a mahaswapna. This is what Yoga Vasishtha says. So Vasishtha says, hey Rama, realize that this life experience is only a long dream. And you wake up, definitely, you will wake up into another experience. And the previous experience is simply discarded. That is the problem. And many of us do not remember our previous births. But one thing is sure, that some time will come, we will definitely leave this body. That means the impermanence of this life is sure. But Yoga Vasishtha says, after leaving the body, that subtle body will be there, and that body which actually dreams every day, after death it starts dreaming, and all experiences in the form of latent impressions, they continue, and that is known as the life after death. So that continues, and on the strength of the impressions, it will take another birth. So the impressions only decide what kind of birth it will take. So this is very strongly advocated in Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads and Yoga Vasishtha also. So that's why they always say impressions are of two types, good and bad. But we must be careful about the bad impressions, and we must try to desist from those. And if we cultivate the good impressions, gradually we can get into the right path. And after that, a time will come when we will actually shut off the right impressions also, the positive ones. So both kind of impressions should be finally discarded. That's what the Yoga Vasishtha says. And Bhagavad Gita also. In the Mahabharata we find a shloka, Teja dharmam adharmancha ubhaya sukrita dushkrute. It says there that finally you have to give up all the good and bad, dharma and adharma, everything. Go beyond all that, transcend. So that particular transcendental state is very strongly described and recommended for all the people. So the dreams, we again get from one dream to another dream, and again dream experience, and the cycle continues. But we wake up in another dream called wakeful state. Yoga Vasishtha says, we actually unnecessarily and very sarcastically, we say that we are dreaming and now we are awakened. Only that previous experience was a dream. But Yoga Vasishtha says, you are awakened, but this experience is also a dream, but only long dream. And the contrast is very strong, that many a times it happens that we get a dream, we wake up and drink water or do something, again we get into sleep, and the same dream continues. So there is a break, but still the dream experience is not broken. So that particular long dream is this life. And there the karma is very important. So here you find the cycle of karma. So in this, the mind, it actually, as I told you, nothing but the impressions, vasana. And because of the tendencies or the vasana, we take a birth. And because we take a birth, we do something as action. And the action can be good or bad. So after getting birth in a very good, nice family also, we may indulge in bad actions. Maybe we are born in a bad family, but we may become good. We have such examples in the epics also. If you compare the Prahlada story, so Prahlada was born to Hiranyakashipu, a demon king, but Prahlada was a great devotee. Though born in a demon's family, he was a great devotee. And Vibhishana, he was also born in a demon family, Rakshasa, but he was a devotee of Sri Ramachandra. So we find these examples. Similarly, we know the Nigama Sharma story. He was born in a family of Brahmin, but he was a pervert. He never had any faith in all the tradition, in all our religion and all the spiritual matters. So he was a gone case. But after, that means towards the last part of his life, naturally he finds a change in himself and he becomes a good person, etc. So there is a chance that a bad person is born in a good family or a good person is born in a bad family. That all depends on the amount of impressions, and impressions nothing but mind. So here you find a cycle that the vasana, they decide the birth, and after taking the birth we again do something in the form of action, and because of those actions again we accumulate the vasana. Again this continues. That's why in the Yoga Vasishtha, Vyasa Maharshi says, Vritti samskara chakram anisham avartate. That means our impressions and mind. Again, mind accumulating impressions. So finally, so many impressions accumulated at one place, they become the mind and they decide the birth also. And once we take a birth, the immediate result of that is experiencing sukha or dukkha, glee or gloom, happiness or sadness. Then, after that, naturally, we get tempted to experience only sukha, and that leads to kama. And if anybody comes in between that, naturally we develop dvesha. That means aversion or hatred. And because of these impurities only, the impressions are again accumulated again and again. And further what happens? Again you will have to take a birth. And because you take a birth, dukkham or sorrow is indispensable. And again you do something. And because you do something, you again accumulate impressions. And again you take a birth. So this is actually the cosmic cycle, that you are in the wheel of birth and death. That is the problem. So in that, we have to understand the role of mind, that it can be consoled, cajoled, it can be directed, it can be goaded, it can be channelized, because it is, after all, like river water. So the water can be used for cultivation, or it can even drench many things. It can damage many things or destroy many villages, the same water, but it depends on how we use that. Similarly, the mind or the impressions, thoughts, they can be properly guided. So mind actions, from actions we cultivate few things, and again we go to reactions, and the reactions lead to impressions, and these impressions become mind. But you don't find any stop of this cycle. That is the problem. And for that, whatever is to be done, whatever is recommended in the Yoga Vasishtha, that is the subject matter of tomorrow's lecture. So here, impressions become mind and lead to actions, and these actions only connect us with the worldly objects. Whatever we say, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, these are actually feelings. But unless they are expressed, there is no contact with the external object. So that's why the world we can get into touch with only through our actions, stimulated by our mind, which is nothing but impressions. So this idea is very importantly stated in the Bhagavad Gita. And the Yoga Vasishtha, as I told you, that repeats this, that after all, impressions. So, yoya shraddha sayeva saha. Shraddha. Shraddha is a typical word in Sanskrit. Many people misunderstand that because they don't know the etymological meaning of Shraddha. Shraddha. There are two components in that. Shraddha. And Shraddha is another Vedic word for Sat. So, when you say Saddha, it becomes Shraddha. And Sat, Dha means taking in mind, Sat means real. So putting together these two words, what idea you get? Believing or putting in mind that something is real is Shraddha. And we actually, all human beings, we have some Shraddha inside. That means we believe that something is real and we lead life. And this Shraddha, see, sometimes it happens with the insane people or the mad people, so mentally retarded. So what difference we find with them? So they are in a different world. They are experiencing something which we don't see, and hallucinations, all that, and we tell them they are mad people. But philosophy says that their Shraddha is different because they believed, totally, completely believed that something is real, and that appears before them, and they are discussing, arguing, debating and fighting, everything, doing everything with that imaginary. And we, throughout life, we also believe that this world is real and other people are also real, and we are leading a comfortable life. So this is Shraddha. And whatever you take in your mind as real, that actually decides the shape of mind. Yoga Vasishtha says, this Shraddha in the mind, this actually can make a healthy person, a mad person, or a saint, or a realized person. So it all depends on the Shraddha, amount of Shraddha. So yoja Shraddha sayeva saha. So for this, Patanjali Maharshi says in Yoga Sutra, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna Purvaka Itaresha. So starting from this Shraddha, we can continue our yogic life towards Prajna. So very beautiful relation he has given in the Yoga Sutra, that you start with Shraddha, and the ultimate result of Shraddha will be Prajna. That means complete enlightenment. That is Prajna. Vratam bhara tatra Prajna, he says. So that actually our journey into that Prajna, the enlightenment, should start with Shraddha. And this he is talking about is spiritual Shraddha. Otherwise, we all have some Shraddha, and this is in the form of basic instinct. But if we counter-cheat our genes and get above them, then naturally we will get to that enlightenment. So that is the idea. And tomorrow we will see the individual consciousness, supreme consciousness, and the mind control, and the role of pranayama in mind control, the relation between prana and chitta, is actually, it's very important point discussed in Yoga Vasishtha, prana and chitta spanda. So these things we will discuss tomorrow. Thank you.